Hi, it's me. In 2023, scientists unlocked secrets hidden within the layers of a nearly 740,000-year-old volcano. Using a technique that sounds straight out of science fiction, they were able to peer into the past and learn more about this ancient eruption. They found some pretty shocking things, including that this eruption was more than 3 times larger than Mount Vesuvius, which buried Pompeii. This discovery is important for a couple of reasons. It helps scientists understand how volcanoes work. And because this site is located in Italy, it could help them predict what might happen if one of Italy's active volcanoes erupts. So, let's talk about what this research tells us about this long-ago eruption. Let's also talk about how scientists did it, why they chose to study this volcano, and what we can do with this kind of information. And along the way, let's answer a very important question. Can robots save us from volcanic eruptions? The first thing I want to get out of the way is the idea that this was a typical day at the office for scientists. Like, yes, it's cool that they discovered something new, but honestly, this wasn't your average paper by any means. The research was published in the journal Quaternary Science Reviews, and it's part of a special collection called Outstanding Reviews of the Year. There's a whole section dedicated to this paper, and it was chosen for being an outstanding example of research in Earth and planetary science. So this was a big deal. So what did they discover? Well, the eruption happened at the Sapriano volcano in Italy around 660,000 years ago, and it was significantly bigger than the eruption of Mount Vesuvius that destroyed the Roman city of Pompeii. As far as scientists can tell, this was the biggest eruption of the past million years in the Mediterranean region, and it would have been visible as far away as Greece. If you're wondering where this volcano is, it's in southern Italy, not too far from the island of Capri and the city of Naples. You might know about the famous Italian volcano, Mount Vesuvius, the volcano that devastated Pompeii. Well, Mount Vesuvius is a stratovolcano. That's a type of volcano that has steep sides and is made up of layers of ash and rock. And guess what? So is the Sapriano volcano. But unlike its flashier, more famous neighbor, the Sapriano volcano is considered dormant rather than active. In other words, geologists don't think it's going to erupt anytime soon. Or do they? Scientists have been studying the layers of material on the surface of the volcano to try and figure out when it erupted and what those eruptions were like. But here's the problem. Scientists can't just open up the layers of the Earth like a book to read the history inside. They need to use indirect methods to figure out what's going on underneath. And that's where things get really interesting, because there are all kinds of cool technology and techniques involved. For example, scientists use a method called radiocarbon dating to figure out how old different layers are. With this technique, they can date organic material like charcoal or bone fragments found in the volcanic deposits. Then they use another method called tephrostratigraphy to see how the layers of volcanic ash compare with other eruptions. They can also use software to model how the ash from the eruption spread out over the landscape. All of these methods helped scientists paint a picture of what the eruption was like and how far the ash and debris reached during the eruption. But there's another technique that scientists used, one that's so cool it sounds like something straight out of science fiction. They used artificial intelligence. That's right, AI. More specifically, they used machine learning algorithms to analyze data gathered from drilling into the volcano. And you might be wondering, wait a minute, why would they drill into the volcano if they couldn't just open it up? Well, to answer that, let's talk about how this research came to be. The research was conducted by scientists from Italy and Germany. And before this research, not much was known about the history of the volcano. What scientists wanted to find out was when it erupted and how big were the eruptions. To do this, they drilled several kilometers into the volcano and retrieved core samples. From these cores, they were able to extract information about the chemical composition of the materials, including the types of minerals present and their ratios. They also learned about the physical properties of the materials, such as their grain size and texture. And here's where AI comes in. Scientists used machine learning algorithms to analyze the data. Basically, the AI looked for patterns and relationships in the data that humans might have missed. The AI was trained on data from other volcanoes so that it could identify similar features in the saponite samples. This allowed the researchers to gain a deeper understanding of the history of the volcano and its eruptions. And what they found was pretty surprising. The eruption they were studying was more than 3 times larger than the eruption of Vesuvius that led to the destruction of Pompeii. It was also more than twice the size of the most violent eruption ever recorded at Mount Unzen in Japan. That's some seriously explosive stuff. But that's not all. The researchers found that the eruption deposited 20 cubic kilometers of material and formed a layer of ash more than 2 meters thick over an area of more than 1,000 square kilometers. But perhaps even more surprising was that there were 2 main phases to this eruption. The first phase produced a Plinian eruption column that rose more than 35 kilometers up through the atmosphere. This is a type of eruption column that's characterized by a quiet beginning followed by a sudden explosion. The second phase was a less violent but more extensive ash emission that affected a much larger area. This research is important because it helps us understand how volcanoes work, and it could also help predict what might happen if Italy's active volcanoes erupt. Studying past eruptions can help scientists identify patterns and trends, which can help them better understand the behavior of volcanoes over time. By studying the frequency, magnitude, and impacts of past eruptions, scientists can develop more accurate models of how volcanoes might behave in the future. These models can then be used to inform emergency planning and response efforts in the event of an eruption. It can also help them evaluate the effectiveness of different strategies for mitigating the impact of volcanic eruptions, such as evacuation plans or the use of technology to monitor volcanoes in real time. Ultimately, the goal of this research is to help keep people safe by improving our understanding of the volcanoes that we live with. But we already knew that volcanoes were dangerous. I mean, just look at Mount St. Helens. Before it erupted in 1980, scientists thought it was quiet and wouldn't erupt for a long time. But boy, were they wrong. The eruption was one of the deadliest in U.S. history, and it completely changed the landscape of the area. So the real question is, can robots save us from volcanic eruptions? Because if robots can do anything, it's making coffee and saving us from dying, right? Well, maybe not quite yet. There's a lot of talk about using drones to monitor volcanoes, but the reality is that volcanoes are dangerous environments, and it's tough to get machines to work in such extreme conditions. Plus, even if we had robots flying around the world, monitoring every volcano, how would they stop an eruption? Robots aren't quite that advanced yet. What's more likely is that robots will play a role in monitoring volcanoes. Drones equipped with cameras and sensors could be used to collect data on volcanoes, such as the temperature of the gas emissions or the movement of the ground. This data could then be used by scientists to better understand the volcano and predict the likelihood of an eruption. Robots could also be used to explore areas of volcanoes that are too dangerous for humans to go, such as inside craters or lava tubes. These explorations could help scientists learn more about the inner workings of volcanoes and identify early warning signs of an eruption. However, ultimately, it's unlikely that robots will be able to actually stop a volcanic eruption. The power of nature is truly amazing, and it's something that we're still working to understand. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll be able to predict eruptions with even more accuracy and save more lives in the process. But until then, we should all take a moment to appreciate the amazing power of volcanoes and the incredible challenges that they pose. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. Thanks for watching.